Welcome to the Modern Taoist with Kit Mann. Ancient wisdom, modern life, and the way. Join the free Modern Taoist community on Patreon at patreon.com/themoderntaoist or visit the website at taoananda.com. And now, the Modern Taoist.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Modern Taoist. My name is Kit Mann, and I hope you're having a fine day wherever you may be. However you may be listening, we're available on Spotify and Apple and Amazon Music and anywhere else where you get your podcasts. But you already know that because you're currently listening. Unless you're on YouTube right now. We got a lot of new YouTube people since we started doing the video, so I appreciate that. That's super nice of you guys to follow along as well. One thing YouTube has brought that we didn't get anywhere else is the trolls. So just so you know, if you are a troll, you are blocked immediately. I do not respond to trolls. I'm not here to argue about the Tao. I'm not here to listen to weird conjectures about how your religion is better than this one. And this isn't a religion, it's a philosophy. So thank you for your comments, but you will be automatically blocked because I don't have time nor the inclination to be in a world like that. And by the way, if you're a social media person, you should just automatically block everything. I'm just telling you right now. That's the Taoist way. Block it all. Don't engage. So we get a lot, like we talk about all the time, all the different questions we get. And for whatever reason, in the last couple of weeks, we've gotten a lot of questions, and we addressed this in previous episodes at the beginning. I think there's one or two episodes, one about nature, and then there's an episode about where I mentioned walking meditation, and I think in that episode we brought this up a couple of times. But I thought we've got enough questions, and I've had enough conversations in the last, 2 months, month and a half, that I figured we should do an entire episode about this particular topic. And we got a couple of questions this week, as a matter of fact, about this topic. And then I had a conversation with someone who's been studying Taoism, pretty deeply for about 2 years. And they fully understand the philosophy. They can talk about Wu Wei and the cycles of nature and living in alignment with the Tao. I mean, they're not ready to teach yet, but they've got it. You know what I mean? They understand what they're doing. And then they said something that stayed with me for a bit. They said, Kit, I live in an apartment in Chicago, and I work 9 to 5, and my food comes from a store. And I haven't touched real soil in years. And it occurred to me that those are the things about Taoism that I've been missing. And he was pretty worked up about it, to be honest with you. He felt like maybe all of this work in Taoism that he's been doing is missing something because he doesn't have access to nature. And that is a good question. And it's not just a Chicago problem. It's a question that's facing anyone who takes Taoism seriously and then looks at the actual life they are living and tries to figure out how the two connect. Because the world that Lao Tzu describes when he was around, a world where a person woke when the light, when the sun came up and went to sleep when the sun went down, and when food came from the ground right outside their door, and when seasons shaped the day and the week and the year. That world is not the world we live in now. That world is not the world that 99% of human beings are living in right now. The world where most people are living has outsourced light to electricity. And they've outsourced their food to supply chains that span the globe. People in any developed nation are also outsourcing their schedule to their employers and their governments. And the logic of an economy that has no interest whatsoever in whether your body is ready to do something. And our connection to natural cycles that Taoism considers, frankly, foundational, has not just weakened. For many people, it's been so thoroughly severed that they're not sure they ever had access at all. So the question this episode is going to deal with today is not whether this is a problem, because obviously it is. It's a problem that shows up in the rates of sleep disorder and metabolic dysfunction and this low-grade depression, low-grade sense that something is off. The question is what a person who takes Taoism seriously does about this. And not just as a theory, not just as a lifestyle, but in the actual conditions of actual life that is surrounded on all sides by systems that are designed to keep you somewhere other than where you should be. So let's talk for a moment. Let's kind of break this up into segments, if you would. And segment one, let's talk about what has been taken and how that came about. The government didn't sit down and have people in a room and decide to remove you from nature. That's not what happened. It happened in the way most displacement happens, through time, through accumulation. One law about work hours, one zoning decision that removed green space, one policy that put food production behind the walls of regulation and distance and corporate infrastructure. And those things piled up. And that displacement did not happen overnight. It did not happen to everyone at once. It happened in layers. First, the land was enclosed. The commons that people had farmed and gathered for generations were fenced off and privatized. And the people who relied on them were pushed into factories and into cities. And then the factories decided our workday and our clocks. And the cities set the grid. Then the advertising kicked in. And that set the desire. Right? And each of these layers removed another degree of autonomy from our body and transferred that autonomy to the system. So a person living in a city in 2026 is the product of several hundred years of this layering, one on top of another, on top of another, on top of another. We did not choose to be indoors 93% of the time. That's the number, though. Can you believe that? That is the number. Most of us are indoors 93% of the time. We didn't choose that. We did not choose to eat food that was grown 1,000, 2,000, 3,000 miles away from where we live, in soil that we've never seen or touched, sometimes not even in soil, by people whose names we will never know. We didn't choose that. We didn't choose to sleep on a schedule determined by our electric bill. Right? We were handed these things as conditions for living, conditions for having a place and a job. So what did we do? We are human beings. We do what human beings do better than we think we do. We adapted. But that adaptation has a cost. And the cost is not just stress and disconnection, it is the loss of the sense that you are part of something bigger than the system. And the knowledge that your body has a relationship with the cycles of the world that no employer and no government can own. And we lost the realization that that relationship still exists today. It has just been buried through these layers that most people have forgotten about. Now, I know we have listeners all over the world in 159 different countries, and that just blows my mind every day, and I love that. So I'm going to talk about my country for a moment in the United States, because this is where I have my numbers that I can prove. United States, the average person spends 93% of their time indoors, not because they choose this. This is the design of the life we were handed. Outdoors has become a destination rather than a condition of living. Our food comes in packages from places we've never seen. Our light is set by a switch rather than by the sun. Work begins and ends on a clock that has no relationship to our body's rhythms and was designed in a century when the electric light made ignoring these rhythms profitable. Taoism was born in a world where people lived inside natural cycles because there was no alternative. The farmer knew the seasons because his survival required it. Your body woke with the light and rested with the dark because there was nothing else to wake it or keep it awake. Food came from the ground. The ground responded to the same cycles that the body did. The connection was not a philosophy. It was not a ritual. It was the structure of life. And that structure has been dismantled. Not all of it, not everywhere, but enough of it that most people in the developed world are living inside a system that runs counter to your body's nature at almost every point, and the body knows this. The Tao Te Ching does not have chapters on zoning law and food regulation or a 40-hour work week. What it has is the observation that the cost of forcing things against nature is always larger than it appears at the time when it happens. And we are in the middle of discovering that right now. So, how does Taoism handle this? What does Taoism? So now we've designed, we've discussed and described the problem. What does Taoism ask of you then? Lao Tzu never asks you to leave civilization and go live in the mountains. It'd be ridiculous. Some people do this. That's fine. But Taoism does not require that. I can't tell you how many times I've gotten an email or a question of somebody that says, I wish I could just go live in the mountains. Nobody's stopping you. But that is not Taoism. Taoism does not ever say that is what is required. What the text requires is way more demanding than that, because it requires your attention. Right? You can go live in a forest preserve or a nature retreat and buy yourself some nice hiking boots and then you're in nature, okay? That's fine. But that's not what we're talking about, because Taoism can be practiced standing at a bus stop or sitting in an office or walking from the parking lot to the building entrance, because it requires your attention to what is happening. Attention in the body, in the light, in the quality of the air, rather than dreaming about being somewhere else or imagining a world where you were somewhere else. That doesn't help you. That desire to be somewhere else adds stress to where you are. Right? The bus stop has sky. The sky has light that is different at 7 a.m. than it is at noon. It's different in October than it is in March. The body registers these differences, whether or not the mind is paying attention. I used to, when I was in the radio business, I would get up every morning at 3:30 in the morning. Every morning for 25, 30 years. I got up every single morning at 3:30 in the morning, and I went to work. And when my oldest son was old enough, when he became old enough to, in the summertime when he was out of school, He would get up and go with me. And I will never, never, ever forget the first time that he got up at 3:30 or 4 o'clock in the morning, got dressed, and stepped outside with me. I'll never forget it. It's imprinted on my brain. He stopped, and he just stood in the middle of the driveway. And he goes, "What is that?" And I said, "What is what?" He said, "What is that? I don't know, smell?" I said, "That's 4 a.m. He said, "It smells different out here. It looks different." I said, "It's because it is." But his body registered it because he had spent 93% of his time indoors and never 0% of his time outside at 4 o'clock in the morning. The practice is to notice. It's to let the mind pay attention, to look up, to breathe in and out, to register what the light is doing, to notice whether your body is warm or cold, hungry or not, awake or still reaching for wakefulness. These are not mystical acts. These are the simple acts of being a Taoist. The simple acts of a person who is present in your body in the moment that you are living in right now, not wishing you were somewhere else. Right? Zhujian. That's a word that Lao Tzu is pointing at. Zhujian, usually translated as naturalness or spontaneity. Closer to the meaning of the state of being that you are without the interference of who you are supposed to be. The tree is Zhujian. The river is Zhujian. The sky is Zhujian. The human being is Zhujian in the moments when they are inside their own experience rather than managing and hoping and begging for something else. That is the opposite of Zhujian. Most life is the opposite of Zhujian. Most life is managed, performed, optimized, and scheduled. The body is managed rather than listened to. The emotions are managed. Listen to this now. This is important. Your emotions are being managed rather than being felt. Your time is being managed rather than being inhabited. And the result is a person who is functional, but who is elsewhere. And if you want to return to Zhujian, it does not require you leaving the city or quitting your job or dismantling the structures of your life to go live in the forest. It requires a decision made again and again and again in the small moments of every day to stop managing and start inhabiting. Feel what your body is feeling rather than noting it and moving on. Feel the temperature of the air rather than looking at your phone to see what the number is. If you step outside and you feel, pay attention to what I'm going to say, because this is something that is actionable and you can do it right now. Step outside. Don't look at your phone. Don't look at a forecast. And if you have to wait 3 or 4 days to do this because you've already seen the forecast today, then wait. Step outside at whatever time it is and try to guess what the temperature is. You won't be able to. Try to feel the warmth or the cold without ascribing a number to it. It would be an incredibly rare person that can step outside and name the temperature without having any idea where it might be. I know, for instance, that today our high temperature is going to be 88 degrees. I know that. So if I step outside right now at 10 a.m. as I record this, I'm going to assume our temperature is somewhere in the neighborhood of 68 to 75 because I know what 88 is going to be. But if I didn't know today was going to be 88 and I stepped out right now, it would seem either warmer or colder than I had anticipated. Because I'm feeling it in the moment. Right? Register that without ascribing a number. Notice that it's Tuesday in October rather than simply executing the tasks that Tuesdays in October require. Do you see what I'm saying? I need you to go deeper, and I need you to feel and notice what is happening to you in this moment, not to sit down and write yourself another note about what is going on in the world and why it's opposite of the way you want it to be. And I'm not scolding. I'm simply trying to help you to understand that Chapter 16 of the Tao Te Ching describes returning. The return that happens when attention settles back to what is present after the noise, after the motions, after your day has pulled you elsewhere, what is present. And this return can happen anywhere. It can happen on the subway, in the elevator, in the minutes before a meeting starts. It does not require nature. It requires a decision for you to be where you are rather than somewhere else. Now, that doesn't mean that somewhere else wouldn't be ideal. Of course it might be, but you don't know that. The government has not managed to legislate away the sun. Not that they won't try at some point, but it rises and sets on the same schedule that it always has since before there were governments, before there was a clock. And the body responds to it whether you have a schedule arranged around it or not. The seasons still change. The food available from the ground still shifts with them, even if the supermarkets try to obscure this by flying strawberries in from other countries where it is summer, even though it's winter where you are. The body still slows down in winter and accelerates in the spring. The instinct to rest when light decreases and to move when it increases is still in the body. The systems have made it harder to follow, but they have not changed nature. Right? Somebody asked me a couple of weeks ago or months ago what I thought about the potential of the time change. I could care less. What the government decides to do at the time has no effect on me whatsoever. I will operate within whatever cycle that they determine I need to operate, but my body will still respond to nature. The moon will still move through its cycles. They can't change that. Sleep research has confirmed that every person who has paid attention to their body will respond to the lunar cycle without even trying to. The tides still move. The migration of birds still happen. The trees in the parking lot still know what season it is. Right? My point is that these cycles are available to you regardless of what the government or your job or your schedule tells you. They are available to you if you pay attention. The resistance to connecting with natural cycles is not you being lazy. It is the sheer volume of systems that have piled up competing for your attention. The phone is designed to be more compelling than the sky. It's not. The streaming service is designed to be more engaging than darkness. Yeah, go to sleep. The food system is designed to make the packaged option faster and easier than the seasonal one. Yeah, don't eat it. Every system the person lives inside has been organized to capture your attention. You have the choice to not obey. You are not a slave to the government or to the corporations that have decided to make it so. You have a choice. And I'm not trying to start a rebellion or a conspiracy, although Taoism at its heart is a rebellion. But I'm explaining to you the logic of the economic system applied to the human attention. Attention that is directed at the natural world does not generate revenue, and you do not owe your time and attention to a revenue generator. You can move your time and attention away from that. Attention directed at screens and at products and at the management of an image on social media, this generates enormous amount of revenue for someone else. These systems have been built around human life, and they're built around this fact, and they are effective. The average person in this world spends more time looking at screens than sleeping. The Taoist practice of attending to natural cycles is a form of rebellion and resistance. Stand outside for a few minutes in the morning. Notice what is in season at the market and buy that. Turn off your phone and sit with what is in the room. None of these actions produce content for someone else. None of them generate data. None of them serve the systems that are built around the capture of attention. So in practice, you can stay inside these cycles, but you have to make a choice to do it. You have to eat what is in season rather than what is not. Not as a performance of environmental virtue, but as a practice to the connection of eating what is actually available in the ground at this time of the year. It looks like tracking the light. Go outside at dawn. Not because dawn is romantic, but because your body needs to register the full spectrum of light that the phone does not provide. Sleep when your body tells you to go to sleep. Don't force yourself to stay awake. Right? Track the moon. Not as astrology, but as the moon is your body's oldest timekeeper. And if you start tracking and paying attention, you'll notice when your body's energy shifts, when the cycle shifts. This doesn't solve the systemic problem. I get that. The systemic problem requires systemic results or response. People pushing back against zoning laws that remove green space, against food regulations that made it illegal to grow food in your own front garden. Work structures that have decided your body's rhythms are an inconvenience. That pushback matters, and if you want to be a part of that political system and begin the pushback, more power to you, and I will support you all the way. That's Taoism. Partially, that's Taoism in the modern world. Some of it requires us to push back. But the daily practice of Taoism that I get questions about all the time does not wait for the systemic problem to be resolved, because the Tao is present in the available conditions, not the ideal ones. And the available conditions, even inside the most regulated and disconnected life, still include the sky, the light, the season, the food, and your body knows all of this, even if it's been slowly trained to ignore it. So the question of what to do when the system makes the natural thing illegal or inaccessible is one that the Taoist tradition was familiar with long before the modern version of this arrived. The tradition is full of people who operated under dynasties that made the simple life impossible, that taxed the farmer beyond survival, that conscripted the young people into wars that served the ruler rather than the people. Laws that regulated and controlled their land and their food and the movement of their population, they existed in those periods. When we talk about Taoism, people try to assume, or not try to assume, they just naturally assume that Lao Tzu was just chilling, living on his land, looking at the sky. That's not what was going on back then. It was chaos. That's why he wrote the Tao Te Ching. He wrote it as an act of rebellion, not the performance of rebellion. He wrote it to remind people of the quiet, consistent practice of living inside nature, regardless of what is happening around them. This is the model, right? The daily low drama maintenance of a relationship with what is natural. The body, the food, the light, the cycles, these systems can be obstructed with by the government, but they're never going to change, never. Right? As long as you're on this earth, those cycles will remain. They may fluctuate, but they'll remain. Because the systems can take away the access. They cannot take away a body that knows what is going on in nature, because your body still knows. So the practice is returning to it in whatever form your current situation allows, not waiting for the conditions to be ideal, not waiting for, well, how am I going to get back to nature? It's available to you right now. Taoism has never been a philosophy of compliance. The Taoist tradition is full of people who withdraw from systems that they considered corrupt, or refused roles they considered to be false, or chose life that aligned with their nature over one that aligned with the expectations of the civilization around them. Not by rebelling and quitting and moving, but by noticing. Grow something. Even in a pot on a windowsill, the act of growing food, of watching something come from seed, of being in a relationship with the soil and the light and the water, that reconnects you to the cycles of production and growth. The tomato on the windowsill is not a solution to the industrial agricultural engine. That's not meant to be. It's meant to be a practice of remembering what the relationship is between you and your food. It doesn't solve all the problems, but it brings you back to alignment. Walk outside without a destination. Not an exercise, just a walk. Stop calling it something. Just go for a stinking walk. The body moving through the actual air of the actual person without a goal is what we're looking for. The systems have made walking purposeful. It's walking. Think about that for a minute. The gym has fake machines to walk on when the outside is available to you to walk for free. Explain that to me. I've seen people, I owned gyms. I've seen people that lived a mile away from the gym take a car to the gym to walk 5 miles on a treadmill. Explain that to me. You can't. These are people that are disconnected. The gym world, the gym industry made walking something that you had to achieve. The practice of walking is its own thing. The way a dog walks, inside the motion is nature. You can be a part of that. You can notice that. Not as a task. Spend time with something that is not human-made. Find a tree and go hang out. You don't have to have a conversation with the tree, although it's fine if you do. I've had plenty. Spend time there. Spend time with the weed in the crack in the pavement. Spend time with the bird on the wire. Not as a meditation, but as a return to the context, to the remembering that you evolved inside something. And others have tried to take it from you. When people push back on me and say, you talk too much about how bad the phone is. Yeah. Because it was designed to steal from you. Turn it off for an hour. the light changes in that hour dramatically, regardless of time of day. Spend time with the sounds of the building and the street. Spend time with your body's responses to what is present. I'm not telling you to digital detox. I'm just telling you to take a break every now and then. It's the practice of being where you are rather than being managed by something that was designed by a human being that you've never met to steal from you. It's not a solution. I'm not pretending it is. It's a counter pressure. The system pushes you in one direction. These small daily practices can push back towards the center. It's a quiet, persistent practice of a person who has decided that their nature is not for sale and is not for scheduling. Look, I'm guilty, but I push back. When I find myself spending too much time with a screen, I realize that I'm giving my time and attention and my money to a human being that's never met me and never will, and I push back by turning it off, or turning it upside down, or putting it in another room and go and do something. Counter pressure. Not a solution, not pretending that it is. These systems have taken a great deal from us. They've taken our land, our food chain, our schedule, and now they're trying to manage the light. But there's one thing that they have not managed to get yet. They're going to try. But it's the one thing that matters the most. And that is your body. But they're trying. The food systems are working on it. The pharmaceutical systems are working on it. The advertising systems are working on it. And your job is working on it. But your body still, at its core, is a piece of nature that has not been colonized yet. And it still knows what it knows. It still responds to light and dark and cold and warmth and movement and stillness. It still responds to the food that is grown in the soil rather than food that is manufactured in a facility. If you don't believe me, get a tomato that is organic and get a tomato that was grown in a lab and take 2 bites with a blindfold on, and you'll notice the difference instantaneously. Because your body knows. Your body carries the knowledge of 100,000 years of living inside natural cycles. Don't let them take it. And this is the starting point for being a Taoist in the modern world. So when somebody says to me, what am I supposed to do when there's no nature, no farms, no rivers, no blah, 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 then I say, look, it is not about the forest or the farm. It is about your body. Your body is hungry in the morning because the body responds to light and the hormones that the light triggers, not because the schedule says breakfast is at 7. Eat when the body says to eat, not when the calendar creates a gap. It is a practice. Not always possible, not pretending it is. But when it is possible, it is the act of a person listening to the natural self rather than the scheduled self. People push back all the time. Well, I need coffee in the afternoon. My body just crashes at around 2 o'clock. Yeah, I know. It's supposed to. The body is tired in the afternoon because there's a natural dip of cortisol in the early afternoon that the body's been navigating as long as there have been bodies. That's nature. So we try to solve it with an energy drink. Okay? It's not going to be solved with an energy drink. Use that as information. That's your body registering where it is in the natural cycle for the day, asking for a change of activity, communicating in the language the natural world knows. You ignore it, the body starts to shut down and says, hey man, I've tried to tell you for 2 hours my cortisol's dropping and you took an energy drink. So I'm going to go ahead and crash now. Bye-bye. That's your body responding. When in reality, when you start feeling that crash, get up, have a drink of water, walk around for a bit, get a little bit of exercise. It doesn't have to be going to the gym. You can just walk around your office for 5 minutes. The best energy drink in the world is water. Right? practice of attending to the body in these moments rather than managing the response. Not suppressing the attention, but asking what is going on. That is Taoism. The body is the last piece that the natural world is available to you. It is the one piece of nature that travels with you through every environment, including the ones designed to make you and nature irrelevant. And it keeps reporting to you in the language of sensation and energy and response. It keeps reporting to you on the gap between the conditions around it and the conditions that it was built for. Learn to read your body. Learn to treat your body's responses as data, as information, rather than as an inconvenience. That's Taoist. That's the Taoist practice. Your body knows what it's doing, believe it or not. Your body knows what time it is today. Your body knows what the temperature is. Your body knows what the season it is. Your body knows when it's been inside too long and when the food it's been given is not the food it needs. Your body will tell you. The Taoist practice is to listen. Because the body, unlike the calendar, has not forgotten what it is. And what it is nature. So when you say, I don't have access to nature, you have access to all the nature you need if you pay attention. Let's take our listener question today. This one comes to us from Kiera, or Kiera, hope I pronounced that right, in Syracuse, New York. Kit, what does Taoism say about things like how my home is decorated and what kind of car I drive? Do I have to give up things like this that bring me joy? Kiera, the short answer is no, of course not. The long answer is that the question contains an assumption that we need to take a look at. Taoism is not about aesthetics. It never has been. I don't care what you wear, what you look like, whether you have a yin-yang hanging around, whether you wear beads around your neck. I don't care about any of that stuff. Taoism does not ask you to live without beauty or comfort or things that make life feel like yours. It's not about giving up your material possessions like some traditions require of you or ask of you. Taoism has produced some of the most refined poetry and painting and ceramics in human history. And believe me, they were not just given away, right? They were sold. They were bought by other people. Taoism is not a tradition that is hostile to that. It is a tradition that does ask something, though, about beauty and about things that, quote unquote, bring you joy. It doesn't ask whether it belongs in your life. It asks, what is it in service of? The Taoist distinction between things is not a distinction between beautiful things and plain things. It is between the things that arise from a genuine feeling and things that arise from the performance of self. A home decorated because the objects carry real meaning for the person that lives there, because they were made by someone they know or love, or they found in a place that matters, or they represent something true about what they love. That is a home that is not a problem for Taoism. The home decorated to signal a status or to produce an impression or confirm a version of yourself that you are performing, that costs something. And it costs you the currency of authenticity. Same with your car. If your car is what it is because it brings you genuine pleasure and you can sustain it without strain, no argument. If the car is what it is because it communicates to the world that you are someone that you're not, or someone you are pretending to be, Taoism would ask you whether you are living a life or performing a life. And whether that performance is producing satisfaction or stress. So the question is not what you have. It is whether it reflects who you are or who you are trying to appear to be. Hey, and those two things can be identical. That's great if they are, but they're often not. And it takes honesty, self-awareness to know, are you being who you are, or are you being who you are pretending to be? Right? I hope that answers your question. This week, your Taoist assignment, pick one natural cycle. Don't care what it is. The light in the morning, food, hunger, whatever. Pick one natural cycle and track it for 7 days. Okay? Go outside within 30 minutes of waking up before you look at your phone and look at the sky. Pay attention to the moon each night and find out where it is in its cycle and then check it each night. Watch what it does. Eat food that is grown in your region that is in season. Do that for 1 week. And at the end of the week, notice whether anything has shifted inside you, not in the world, but in how you are sitting with it. Because the systems are real. The displacement that we feel is real. The loss of access to the land and the food and the light and the rhythms, these are not imaginary. But that doesn't mean you have to wait for the systems to be fixed, because the Tao is available to you regardless. It is available in the conditions that exist right now, in the light coming through the office window, in the season that is happening outside your house or your building, in how your body is responding to all of it. The practice is paying attention. Not as a substitute for the system, for the systemic change, but as a partner alongside it. Practice is the daily act of a person who has decided that no schedule, no regulation, no system of management has the authority to decide how they're going to live their life in this moment. Because what you are is nature, and nature does not need permission to be itself. So be yourself. Honestly, truthfully, in this moment. If this episode gave you something, pass it on. If you have a question, send in whatever came up, because those are always the conversations worth having. Join us over on Patreon, patreon.com/themoderntaoist. We have lots of conversations going on over there all the time. People are asking each other questions all the time. Sometimes I jump in there. Oh, by the way, if you are on Patreon now, you will get the weekend check-in usually on Thursday instead of having to wait till Friday. One of the little perks of being on Patreon. That's going to do it for this episode. Thanks for being here.
Thanks for listening to The Modern Taoist with Kit Mann. Join the free Patreon community at patreon.com/themoderntaoist and subscribe to the podcast for new episodes every Tuesday and weekend Taoism check-ins every Friday. Visit the website at taoananda.com and don't forget to like and follow us on whatever platform you find us.